So welcome to another episode of Horror Face Off. Today we're going to be doing Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives versus Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Arguably two of the better sequels in both franchises. Two big fan bases for sure. And we have assembled a panel of eager participants ready to dissect and crown a champion out of these two rivals, age-old rivals. So let's start off with introductions, and we're gonna throw to you, John. You're like Hollywood squares. You know when the celebrity always has that one square every
You're telling me I'm Paul Lynde? Yeah.
You are, yeah. You are. All right, John. So for the people that don't know, how about a little intro on yourself?
My name is John Popa. I live in central Ohio. I'm older than I care to admit, and that's really all there is to it. I have a boring day job, and I do all the Halloween horror stuff at night.
Nice. Yeah, your Hollywood Squares reference definitely
aged me quite a bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So we're going to throw to Mia, who's been on the show before. How's it going?
Hi, my name is Mia. I am outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, close to where they shot Dawn of the Dead. Fun fact, I worked in the mall that they shot Dawn of the Dead. And we are, I say we as in like me and my boyfriend, we make independent horror films. We are huge horror collectors and Halloween lovers. And this is what we live and breathe.
Nice. Nice. And our newest member to the show, and we're really happy to have you, Catherine. How about a little intro?
Hi. Well, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm obsessed with horror. I run a blog called livingdeadlaptop.com where I talk about basically like any horror movie that has to do with the paranormal. I write about movies for a living, and horror is just, that's my jam. It's my favorite genre.
Awesome. And I'd just like to, on a personal note, you were debating on social media about dyeing your hair orange the other day.
Yeah.
And now I see on the show. Sorry?
So you can see what one.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So good job. It looks good. And you were also wearing something that our audience can't see. Would you like to allude to that?
Yes, I wore my Nightmare on Elm Street Vans that you can't see right now, but they're here in spirit.
Awesome. And okay, so is everybody on this panel, you're fans of both of these movies, or do you just have like a vested interest in one, you wanted to squash the other one?
I'm definitely a fan of both.
Yeah, I will say I like them both, but my
well, don't say what you like better. Don't say what you like better. If you're gonna
like them both.
Okay, let's just leave it at that. Although I did see that look in your eyes, Catherine. So
I do like them both. I do, but I might be leaning gently one way.
That happens. And you know what? This is actually the first time I'm doing this show where we've had some good matchups that I don't know who's going to win. But this one is one where I don't know which one I'm going to pick. So I'm kind of curious myself. I didn't work anything out in my head. So let's get to it. Okay, we're going to start with plot, and we're going to start with Mia.
Oh boy. Well, so I actually hadn't seen these in a really long time, and my cat is really wanting attention, so I'm going to hold her. So I actually watched both of these today in my car in between photo sessions because I was like, man, I really don't want to sound like an idiot when I'm on there today. So I rented both, and they are both so similar. Like, I'm thinking about all of the things that you're going to ask me. And plot-wise, I think I'm going to go with Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Actually, I know I am, just because I think as much as I love Part 6, it's still kind of the same type of formula where I think they really added new rules and kind of went with a different, same premise, but a little bit of a different direction with like the superpower thing. So I'm going to give it to Nightmare 3 for that.
Awesome. John?
I also went with Nightmare. I think in terms of taking like the initial movie and actually expanding on the ideas and developing the characters and developing the actual story and kind of giving it what felt like could have been a fairly logical conclusion if it didn't make movies beyond Part 3. I think Dream Warriors did probably as good a job of that as any kind of slasher sequel has kind of ever done.
Cool. I'm gonna keep mine short. I definitely agree with the both of you. I think that Dream Warriors was a really cool premise. It was a departure from part two, which was a departure from the rest of the series. But I thought it was really well done. I won't, like I said, I won't break it down too much in this category, other than to say it was a cool way to go, and a fresh take, and it worked. All right, Catherine, you think you got the hang of this?
Yes.
All right, okay, you're up.
I'm gonna pick Nightmare 2, Dream Warriors. The reason I'm picking that one is because that one, I feel like for someone who hasn't seen all of the movies, or it's been a really long time, that one's easier to watch and know what's going on without having seen all of the movies beforehand. Whereas I feel like Friday the 13th really just picks up like out of nowhere, and you have to know exactly what Tommy's up to understand that movie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Dream Warriors.
All right, so Elm Street's off to a flying start. Okay, so we're gonna do setting. I'm gonna lead off with this one, and then let you guys correct me. I like both. So I really loved the hospital setting. I love hospital settings. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. They're overdone, but at one point I did. I love the hospital setting in Elm Street 3. I thought it was really it's almost like you want to be there at times. But I also loved some of the sets, like at the end, that room where the mirrors all crash and stuff, that dark red crimson hallway. That's like an amazing set. I love that set. I love the the pig dining room set in Elm Street, the house and the cinematography, which I guess would play into a lot of the next category. But I'm going to give it to Friday the 13th. I've said this before. You put a horror film in the woods by a lake, and I'm in. And to me, that's a formula that just rarely loses. So we're going to go to John.
I kind of went back and forth on this a lot, because I think if we're just looking at the basic setting, I would agree with you about Jason Lives. But I think, to your point, some of the more elaborate sets as Nightmare on Elm Street goes on. The one that I really like is the junkyard, when they go when Lieutenant Thompson and the doctor go to the junkyard and the Freddy skeleton comes out. That kind of paralleled against the like sort of hellish scape they're in when they're fighting Freddy at the end. I think so. Nightmare is known for being a little bit more elaborate, and I think that kind of plays to it here too. So I think I will end up giving it to Nightmare for the more imaginative settings, whereas Friday's in a camp because it's Friday the 13th.
All right, Catherine.
I like the elaborate sets in Dream Warriors because you can do so much with someone dreaming, but I have to go with Friday the 13th because the idea of just someone coming to like stab you with a machete in the middle of the woods is terrifying and arguably more realistic than Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's just scarier to me. So I like the idea of camp murders.
Don't we all? All right, Mia, you're up.
I'm gonna cap on what John was saying. When I was rewatching it today, the junkyard scene, I was like, wow, I want to be there. Like, I want to do a photo shoot there because it was so well done and so beautiful. Same with the hallway of mirrors. I have a hallway of mirrors in my own house because I love that aesthetic so much. However, I wanted to be in Friday 6 more because they had a lot of, it felt like fall, even though it's summer camp, it really felt like fall in this movie. And it was like very dreary and rainy and dark today. And it kind of just felt like it did in the movie. And the way that it's like the wind is always blowing and the leaves are always going somewhere. And that just creates such a cozy ambiance to me that I'm going to go with Friday 6 because I just would rather be in that movie with that setting.
Awesome. So we kind of we all debated that one. That was actually sounding a lot closer in everybody's minds. Okay, so we're moving on to filmmaking, and since she's always making films, let's throw to Mia.
Filmmaking. This one's these movies really are so similar. It's kind of insane. You did this on purpose, didn't you, Jason? You picked these two on purpose.
You know what? I get in crap. Sometimes I pick movies that are so like opposite, and people rag on me for it, like a Lost Boys versus Monster Squad. And you know, I just try my. I went for good sequels.
Well,
that's all I went for.
It felt very deliberate as I'm watching these. I'm like, what? Like, it's so similar, but. What's this category again? Oh, cinematography, directing, filmmaking. Yeah,
filmmaking,
okay.
directing. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Nightmare 3 mainly, more so because there was a lot more changing of sets, a lot more of different viewpoints and perspectives that they had to kind of go with. Each person's dream is different, and the setting is different, and because when you're trying to relate to the audience by the character's viewpoint, I just think there was a lot more that probably went into, not taking anything away from Friday 6, but a lot of it is set in the same place. It's all, you know, from like a lot of Megan and Tommy's viewpoint. And so I think Nightmare has it beat on that, because I think it's probably more difficult to film with all of that.
John.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm definitely going to pick Nightmare 3 here as well. It's a much more elaborate movie to make. Just physically, I think there's the characters are doing a lot more complicated things. Again, there's a lot more set pieces, a lot more scenery, a lot more. It's got a kind of a more, what's the word we're looking for? It's got a more serious tone, which I think is a little bit harder to maintain and not become maudlin. Whereas I think sometimes it may have been easier to make Friday 6 because it's very slapsticky. Not as a bad thing, but it's a different tone that I think is easier for a director to kind of go for. So I think Dreamwars is a pretty serious movie, and it pulled it off pretty well. So I thought Chuck Russell, who directed it, did a really, really good job of putting that thing together.
Catherine?
I'm gonna go with Dream Warriors too, because when I was watching it, I found myself really studying all of the set pieces. Like in the beginning, like Kirsten's room, like that set, and I was thinking about, you know, comparing it to other movies that I'd seen where it looks similar, and just all of the changes. You can tell there's just so much that went into every single scene and set piece. And like Friday's good, but Fridays, you know, they're at camp, so most of the scenes take place at camp, whereas Dream Warriors, the scenes can take place anywhere. So I'm gonna go with that one.
All right. And I agree with a lot with the Elm Street. Like I said, cinematography is very strong in that film. I kind of thought it had a few you know, dips and effects and stuff that kind of brought it down a little bit, kind of takes you out a little bit, not much. All in all, it was pretty tight. But with Friday the 13th, I'm going to give this to Friday the 13th because Tom McLaughlin, who made it, he was the first one to write and direct Friday the 13th, and I do agree that there's some comedy in there, but ultimately I think, like, you know, it does hold, it holds true to being a horror film, obviously. But what I loved about this film is the budget for Friday the 13th Part 6 was relatively similar to Part 5 and 4 and so on. There was no escalation in budget. But this film has an insane production value. It looks like a legitimate, you know, big release film. And up until then, Friday the 13th films, and I like the way they looked before, never really had that. So, and that's filmmaking. That, to me, that's like, you know, getting the most bang for your buck. He brought kids back into the camp, which, you know, was a huge plus because, you know, they hadn't been there ever. Just a quick shot in Part 1. But so for those elements where he really kind of, and he tried to really incorporate the town around Camp Crystal Lake. It doesn't really get focused on a lot, but, you know, there's a cemetery there. There's a general store, Karloff's, and, like, you know, there's a lot of like little Easter eggs in there that I really kind of dug. So I'm going to give it to Friday the 13th. You may speak, Mia.
Do you know about the guy on set Friday 6 that was like paid to the he got paid the more that he was able to like slash the budget. So he was there like on set to like constantly like pull the rug out from Tom's like everything he wanted to do. Like he was
Really?
just there to like mess it up to try and save the production company as much money as possible so he would make more money too. So that
Wow.
there was that he had fighting against him too.
And I forgot what her name was, but there was someone doing that on part 7. So yeah, good times on a Friday set. So anyway, Friday is my answer. We're moving on. So the next one is acting and characters. I know they could be different, but you can comment on both, but in the end, you're going to just give a grade to one. Like you're going to combine them. So who wants to go first? I've never done this before. I've never thrown it to, I'm going to throw it to Catherine.
Oh, okay. This is hard because in Friday the 13th, I love Court's character.
Mhm.
I think Court is just hilarious, like in every scene. He's just so funny to me. I love him.
And
But
hot.
Dream Warriors, I like the overall cast better. I think that the acting is it's a little bit better, and maybe there's more character growth, I feel like, because you go into each of their individual dreams and you see like what they're dreaming about and what they're interested in and what they're afraid of. So there's more character growth there. Whereas in Friday the 13th, it's difficult to get that. So I feel like for acting, there's just more to go off of for Dream Warriors. So I'm going to go with that one. But I love Court. He's amazing. So he gets a little +1 in my heart.
Honorable mention to Court.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go after you here. I'm gonna say that, you know, again with Tom's direction, the acting really and the characters in part 6 are really, really strong, and as opposed to perhaps some of the other sequels, not all, but you cared if they died. You kind of didn't really want them to die. You know, Sissy and Paula there, like, I mean, they yeah, you know, it kind of sucked when they died. When other Friday 13th, it's like, let's do it, let's kill them. Well, at least that's me anyway. So I really, really enjoyed the attention that went into the characters, and Tom Matthews. I thought like that character, you know, deserved more in the Friday 13th series. And I really enjoyed it. But Elm Street, you know, this one's tough because I mean Patricia Arquette, like Lawrence Fishburne, you got some really heavy hitting actors in this. But I will say this, and I know that this, again, I said this in another matchup, and it gets some flack, but Heather Langenkamp's not very good in she's her, some of her lines are very, very wooden, and I know that's not a popular opinion, but it's kind of a fact. You can like her all you want, but there's some really poorly delivered lines where I would almost give Friday the category because of that. But because Elm Street does have a lot of character arc, like you were saying, Catherine, I'm gonna have to give it to Elm Street. John.
I kind of went back and forth too, excuse me. For a lot of the same reasons, but I will say I was more sympathetic to the characters in Dream Warriors, especially Philip, you know, the kid who gets turned, the puppet kill, which I think is a sad moment in the movie. It's not just a sort of splattery ha kill. I think some of the characters are more rounded, not that they're entirely complex, you know, Shakespearean characters, but there's a little more depth to them. And I do think the Friday characters are just kind of there to get knocked around. Like, I don't, other than Megan, who I really like, speaking of people who are really hot, I think the rest of them I didn't have much investment. I was just like, okay, there's 13 kids here, and let's just start, let's see what we can do to them. So I do think Elm Street, there was a little bit more legitimate, I think, emotion attached to those characters for me, whereas Friday, they were kids in a slash movie about to get chopped up.
All right, Mia, you're up.
Was another one when I was watching them today. I was like, what who am I going to pick for this one? But I am going to give it to Nightmare 3 as well, because again, character arc, touching on it, what everybody else was saying. I do I did care more about like the characters in Friday 6. You got like attached to them. But I think, and two, like you also have like 2 legacy characters coming back in both of these movies too, which is another thing that's like so hard. But I think as bad of an actress as Heather can be sometimes, I feel like her character had more of a mission because she had like the kids to save, where Tommy of course didn't want anybody to die, but his focus was purely like just kill Jason, kill Jason, kill Jason, and she was like, we have to save the kids and kill Freddy at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of wanted to lean towards that. And the adults in this, in Friday 6, they're just like, ugh, mean, sheriff's mean, don't like him, liking my daughter liking him. And so all the other sheriff people are like, yeah, we don't like him too. But every asshole adult in Nightmare 3 all had like different, like Heather's dad was an alcoholic and dealing with grief. The female head doctor lady, she was just like, I'm trying to do everything by the book. So there was a lot more backstory to like the asshole adults that don't want to help do anything too. So that smaller parts, but still have more meaning to their backstory. So going with Nightmare.
Okay. I will say, listen, the character of Nancy is great, so I don't want to rag on that. But and also just one last thing I forgot to mention. While I thought it worked in Elm Street 3, I didn't really love how they brought Freddy's mother into play when, you know, his rival across town there, Jason, and his mom were like inseparable. So I thought it was a good angle. It worked in the film, but at the end of the day, it kind of bugs me a little bit. But you know, anyways.
The one thing I did kind of think of when you guys were talking or remember is that there is also the fact that all of Freddy Part 6 is Tommy's fault.
Yeah.
As a character, if he would have not resurrected Jason, you know, 7 more sequels don't happen. Yeah.
The big oops. Yeah, that's true. It's true. So as good a character as he is, we'll cut him down a little bit on that one. Yep. All right. So scare factor. I'll lead off on this one. Slashers don't scare me. They just don't. You know, if I'm ever going to get a scare, it's got to be a paranormal film. Catherine. But what I'm going to look at is scenario. And when I'm in the woods at night, that's a freaky scenario for me. And where, you know, maybe watching a lot of Friday 13th films kind of gets in my head. When I'm in a bedroom and I go to sleep, I'm okay. I never, you know, I'm okay. When you point me to a bed, I'm out. So I'm going with Friday 13th in concept because I can't find anything scary in either of these films. John.
I went with Nightmare. Again, I think because Jason Live's tone is a little bit more silly. It took some of the scare away from me. I don't think they were genuinely trying to frighten people. And I think that first sequence in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, you know, Kristen's first dream where she picks up the baby and Freddy kind of comes around sprinting around the corner. I thought that was a pretty scary sequence, especially when I saw it in theater opening day in whatever, 1987. So I think, again, I kind of agree that neither of these are particularly the ones that terrify me, but I do think there are some moments in Elm Street 3 that were unnerving then, especially when I was younger, and still kind of hold up to this day.
All right, so Catherine, if you are as into paranormal as you say you are, I find it hard to believe that you'd find these scary. But now, before I put words in your mouth, I know a lot of people that can handle the other, and then slashers freak them out. Did either of these films scare you?
I don't find either one scary, but if I were to just pretend one of them was going to scare me, or even think about, like, if I were to watch this like 15 years ago or longer, actually, when it would actually scare me, I would probably be more scared of Jason coming at me in the woods, because I have such a fear of like something going wrong in the woods, or getting lost, or being like alone in the dark in the woods and turn around. Just imagine someone chasing you and having all that happen. That's so terrifying to me. But Nightmare on Elm Street, honestly, I watch it, I giggle a little bit, and then I kind of go to sleep. So it could almost be like a comfort movie, and I could see how it could be scary to a lot of people, but there's just something about the woods. The woods are scary.
All right, Mia, you're up.
Oh, somebody that talks and talks and talks. I'm actually going to keep this one short. Neither one of them are very scary to me. However, when the one counselor, I think it's Sissy, is like taking the girl back, and they're kind of like playing that game to try and keep her like calm, I guess, while she's walking on her back. And then there's that jump scare where it's like the really loud noise and Jason's like in the corner. I was like, oh, I don't know why I wasn't expecting that. So I'm giving it to Jason 6 because it did get me on a jump scare.
Okay. All right. Sounds just the little things. All right. We're going to go to kills. John, you've been very one-sided so far. Let's see if there's anything that's going to change in the following few categories. We'll see. But kills.
Yeah, this is the one where I'm going to change ship a little bit, although this was very tough for me. I think the puppet kill in Nightmare on Elm Street is one of the best kills in slasher movies of all time. But I think the rest of them they're not bloody. Again, it's when Freddy started becoming silly, which he wasn't in the first two movies. And not that I don't like them, but I don't think they're as effective at character death as they are. At this point, they're just becoming goofy. The kills in Jason Lives, I think, are universally goofier, but I think it fits the tone of the movie better. And for just sheer slasher fun, the kills in Jason Lives, especially when the sheriff gets bent in half backwards, and the one girl gets her face shoved through the wall of the camper. I think those kills are, I mean, again, that's what that movie exists for, is to have those kind of kills. And I think Jason Lives delivers those kind of kills like in a really great way.
Yeah.
Fun fact, they wanted exactly 13 kills in Friday Part 6, but apparently it wasn't enough and they wanted to kill every 15 minutes, so they had to kill more people. And also in Dark Shade Creek 3, because my boyfriend loves Friday Part 6, we recreated the breakback in one of our deaths. I'm still going to go with Nightmare 3 though, because I think cinematically the kills in Nightmare 3, while they're not like gory, I don't really care about gore. I like the premise of them, the needles, that's the head smash in the TV. That end is like, it's just like, I wouldn't say pretty, but it's just like, so like cinematic, I guess. Same with the marionette thing. And there's a lot of like just simple kills in Friday that it's just kind of like, oh, okay, another pull through the head or whatever. So to me, it was not as interesting, sure, gory and probably more, but I like the more interesting type things. So going with Nightmare.
Catherine.
They're pretty, I mean, they are pretty even for me, but, and I'm actually surprised at my answer. The more I've been like thinking about it, I'm like, I might be changing my mind a little bit, but I like the kills on Dream Warriors just because they are so elaborate and so just over the top, like the head through the TV, like that's just iconic. Honestly, it's great. But Friday the 13th, the kills are so quick. Like when he just grabs Sissy, takes her through the window and just like she's over. Same thing with like Court in the RV. Like they're quick to the point where you're like, wait, did that just happen? Like, are they dead? And I kind of appreciate that versus Nightmare. I do like that it builds that tension. Like you have to wait for them to, you know, die in whatever way, whether it's the puppeting off the cliff or off the building. But those quick deaths, those are what kind of like get my heart going a little bit because they happen so fast. So I'm going to have to go with Friday the 13th.
Cool. Interesting take. And I kind of like that take because you actually made me think of something different there. Like, you know, the whole movie, Jason's got a quick pace to him and he's a little bit more aggressive and, you know, and the quick deaths because no one really kind of stands a chance against them. So it's kind of cool. So I'm going to agree with John on one of the coolest deaths is the puppet death. That to me is just brilliant. It's still painful to watch today. I did like the deaths in Elm Street because they were fun and they were funny at times. You know, and unsettling. The heroin one is pretty gross. But I'm going to give it to Friday the 13th because there was such a variety. I think Jason was very accommodating to trying to Mia, you said there was nothing really a triple decapitation that doesn't happen in every horror movie, Mia, so I just want to say that right now.
But a decapitation.
Sorry,
but a decapitation nonetheless.
wow, it's wow, someone brought some sass
Oh,
today.
really?
I will say though, it's so creepy when he
Mm.
smashes her through the window, but then he like picks her back up again and takes her, and it's just like, oh, I don't. Why does he need her? But then of course we see the blood all over the cabin walls and stuff. I'm just like, I didn't like that. I was like, I rewatched it again, and I was like, yeah, that does not feel right at all. Like, just like boom, nope. I still need you for whatever reason. I don't know. I didn't like that.
Gotcha. You know what was funny? The first time I saw Jason Lives, and that was actually the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw. The killing of the sheriff when he breaks his back, the VHS quality was so grainy, you couldn't even see his legs. You couldn't even see him get broke. So it looked like he just got choked out. It wasn't until years later that I realized that, oh my God, there's legs moving behind him and he broke his back. So it's kind of neat to see that years later. Yeah, they're fun, right? Like, I mean, the whole camper thing and the face through and then like, you know, Court is just having a ball and then a big giant mountain knife through the head. And then
Court went out happy.
Sorry,
he went out having a good time. Court went out happy.
There's a lot of Court love down in the bottom of my screen.
There is.
Megan love up top. So I'm with you, John, on Megan. I'm with you on
Absolutely.
She's
but
hot too.
but even
honestly, I want her outfit throughout the whole movie. I just want Megan's outfit.
Was
Yeah.
it like a red hoodie, was it, or was
It's just like a red jacket and some jeans, but you know what? It works.
Those are some great jeans. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they were great. Yeah, no, Megan is, yeah, she's high on my list on the Friday on Slasher Girls. But I'm just trying to think. There was a couple of others that I just thought were like punching out a heart, right, showing his strength, and that was really kind of cool. Crushing a head, always, you know, kind of fun. So they were fun, and yeah, so I kind of got a kick out of them, and there was lots of them. So.
And one thing I just wanted to add quickly, you mentioned the TV death in Nightmare on Elm Street. The shot where they find her body and her head is stuck in the TV, she's hanging on the wall, is like one of my least favorite shots in movie history because it's just so dumb looking and fake.
Really?
Like, they obviously are not going to think she did that to herself. It's not a plausible. Yeah. Like if they would have had it where they found her on the floor and the TV would crash on her head or something, that seems the goofiest. I almost feel like changing my directing answer now that I'm thinking about that shot again.
Oh wow! He's getting fired up. This is the first time I've seen him fired up.
Isn't that terrifying though? Like, how did her head get in the TV? What are we missing? Like, that is terrifying, and I think I don't know. I think it's a pretty shot. I like it.
I thought it was funny. I didn't mind the shot that much, but I always said that. Like, try explaining that to Homicide. Like, I mean, there is no possible way that you could do that, right? But again, we're kind of, you know, if we're talking about deaths and Elm Streets, we're splitting the atoms. So, but we finally found a trigger for you, John, and it's Jennifer's death scene in Elm Street 3. All right. So we're moving on to probably the most interesting category. This is, out of all the shows I've done, this is definitely, you know, the heavyweight match. This is Ali versus Frazier. It's the antagonist. So we have Freddy versus Jason, but now I'm going to have a caveat here. We're talking Freddy in Elm Street 3 versus Jason in Friday 6. So anything before or after those movies, throw it out the window. You're judging them on their character in this film. We're going to go to you, Catherine.
Freddy, he's so much scarier to me. Even in this film, like there's something about his joking personality, the way everything's like a joke to him, and you know, you're running in terror and he's just like loving it the entire time. And it's so scary the way he preys on your fear of him and he makes jokes out of it, and he just makes you so miserable right up until the point where he kills you. And that's just really scary. It's a different way of being hunted because he's just making you absolutely know that he's coming to get you and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the scariest part for me. So I'm going to have to go with Freddy, even though I will say there's a scene in Friday the 13th when it was after one of the camp counselors, she takes the little kid back to her cabin, and then she goes back to the other cabin by herself, and she's kind of scared at first to go because it's the woods, it's night, it's kind of windy. That part is really scary to me because you know that Jason's there as the viewer, but she doesn't know that Jason's there. But other than that, I think that Freddy's just terrifying to me in that movie and all of them. He's just so scary.
All right, John.
I went with Freddy too. I am more of a Freddy guy, but I still think he's still very mean in this movie. Like Catherine said, he's preying on people's weaknesses. He's exploiting them. He's making fun of them. He's terrorizing them at their most vulnerable points, and he's doing it very intentionally. It's not like, sometimes Jason is just killing people because they happen to walk in front of him. Whereas Freddy is still, especially in part 3, is still going after very specific people for very specific reasons, and he wants them to suffer, and he's trying to ruin their lives, their parents' lives, everybody's lives. And so I think still in this case, Freddy still wins in this one. Although Zombie Jason, I thought, was a great way to kind of give that franchise a kick in the butt that it might have needed by that point.
Mia.
Yeah, John and Catherine, you make really good points, and you make me want to almost shift my opinion because of him like wanting to cause pain to everybody and enjoying it. But man, Jason and Jason 6 is no nonsense, no BS. He's like, all right, I'm back, bitches. Let's fucking go. Like, right, like hand through the freaking grabbing your heart immediately. And it is nonstop action. That whole movie is like, we're in the cemetery. It's full speed ahead. And I don't know. I think Jason's just so much more powerful. He's really unstoppable. And Freddy they really do try to keep him more sinister, but it is the start of his like rock star type of persona. And that I think does take away, in my opinion. In the first movie, I feel like he would like be the winner in this category because he's like so, maniacal. But to me, there's still too much rock star to him. And Jason is just a fucking beast. So I'm going with Jason.
All right. Okay, so this one is tough for me. While I'll make no apologies that I'm a Jason guy, this one's a little tough because I do think Freddy was really cool. He was pretty badass in this. I didn't like how his voice alternated every once in a while, from like that real high to the real deep. Obviously I love the deep, but that kind of threw me from time to time. I do agree with you, Mia. Like there was the glimpses of the rock star in there, but not enough to ruin this film or his performance. But it is hard for me because like I'm just thinking like it's Jason, not my favorite Jason, but still. I didn't like the utility belt, first of all. I thought the tucked in look with the utility belt was a little campy to head towards a pun there. But I wasn't really big on that, but I like that, like, no BS kind of attitude of Jason. This one's tough. This was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna, because of, there's supposed to be scary movies, and at the end of the day, none scare me, but at least Jason was like all business. I'm gonna give it to him by the slightest of margins. All right. Last category, the ending, and the category is the ending. So we're gonna start off with Mia. Which ending did it for you?
Well, they both kind of end the same way. It's not really over. So I'm gonna go with the one that I just liked watching more, and an eye-opening to me wasn't as exciting as the light turning on in the fake dollhouse type thing. To me, that was a little bit more creative. It was saying he's there, but not overtly in your face like it is in Jason. So I'm going to give it to Nightmare just because I think it was a little more of a creative way to say he's still kicking.
So you're going right to the end. You're going to the last frames of these movies. So you're going.
I
You're taking
watched these today with these questions
You're-
in mind, and that's
and-
exactly right.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine. I'll probably take my answer a little further back, but it is funny when you said that, like, because you were talking about the similarities and like, yeah, the light going on and the eye opening. Yeah, I get it. Good job. You're bringing it all home on the last answer. Good job. All right, John, what do you got?
This was tough for me because didn't know what to consider the ending, especially for Nightmare 3. I think
Yeah.
burying the bones and fighting the skeleton, as if we're going to say we have to kill Freddy for real forever, I think that's the best ending in the series. But I hate that Nancy falls for the ghost of her dad coming back to her and killing her. I think she has to be incredibly stupid in that moment for that to happen. And it drove me crazy since 1987. And so I'm giving it to Jason Lives because it's a very straightforward ending. I think that final fight is great because everybody kind of gets their shots in, and nobody has to do anything intentionally stupid for it to end the way they wanted it to end. And speaking of the stingers, I will say by Elm Street 3, even then it was like, okay, there's a light's going to turn on somewhere. We're going to hear the 1, 2 Freddy's coming for you somewhere.
Mhm.
It wasn't very surprising by that, even by then, even with the franchise being 3 movies deep. Whereas we knew Jason was dead, but him kind of fighting to come to life, I thought was kind of a clever way to show it without just it being the same thing they're going to do every single movie.
All right, Catherine, it seems like it's a long time since we've heard from you. So make it count. The end.
Mia, your answer really got my gears going because at the very last second, that is such a strong comparison, the eye opening versus the light turning on. The light turning on, actually, even though this was made after, it made me think of one of Mike Flanagan's series, actually, Haunting of Hill House. It reminded me of that series today. I think I am going to have to go with Jason Lives, though, because he's a zombie in this one. So, like, the idea that you can drag him out to a lake and put him in there and that's going to kill him because you read it in some occult book or whatever Tommy was reading to figure out how to rid the world of Jason once and for all. Like, you kind of know that he can't die. He's a zombie. So I feel like that one is more exciting to me, that he comes back, like zombie Jason rises again out of the lake or something like that. But I think Nightmare on Elm Street is a close second just because I like that eerie, the light turning on at the end. But I also was very mad that she fell for that, him pretending to be her father, because, she's gone through this so many times. Like, how did that happen? That was a severe lapse in judgment on her part. But I think that Friday the 13th is just more satisfying, that ending.
I think with Nancy, it was a lack of sleep, right? We do dumb things when we don't sleep. So, hey, let's throw her a bone here.
Also, I guess she didn't know
hang on.
that her dad was dead. That's,
Sorry, what was
shock.
that?
She didn't know that her dad was dead. So I guess
That's-
that's kind of a shock. So maybe.
Yes,
But
Mia.
come on.
Mia, you don't have to raise your hand.
Well,
Nancy wouldn't have known that the effect looked really bad too, but
not only that though, but like they have like they don't really show it, but they're walking through Dreamland without an ounce of Freddy for like a while before her dad shows up too. So her guard was probably down because he hadn't like done anything for a few minutes or so while they're trying to find their way out. So it was definitely stupid. You're supposed to be like the person that knows everything about this guy, and she still let us down. But I think that was another reason. She's just like, oh, it's over, and clearly so, because he wouldn't have let us alone for this long if it wasn't, but
There you go. And who's to say Kirsten didn't bring him in, right? Kristen could have brought her in, and
I'll
so
give
she.
her a break.
Yeah, let's cut Nancy some slack here. That being said, I'm going with Friday the 13th. I love the Ring of Fire. Like, that was so cool. That was such, like, aesthetically, that was just like awesome, right? Like the battle in a ring of fire. Like, I do, like, I'm glad you brought up that, like, occult book on how, like, it kind of reminds me like in Young Frankenstein when he's looking for his father's book and it's like How I Did It. And I'm like picturing that book saying like How to Kill Jason, and he's flipping through the pages. But he had a plan, you know, like it wasn't just like in every other film, like just getting chased down and then reacting. He kind of had a plan. You didn't know what he was doing for longest time. And yeah, like that Ring of Fire was really, really cool. And the other thing I liked about it was, you know, it looked like it was the battle between Tommy and Jason. And in the end, Megan is the one who ends up saving the day. Like, you know, you still had that final girl, like, you know, and the characters at the end, you cared, right? So not to say that in Elm Street you didn't, but I'm just saying Friday, that's not always the case. So yeah, I got to give that to Friday the 13th. But again, I liked Elm Street as well. Elm Street kind of had, like you were saying, John, like it kind of had a bunch of endings, you know. It was like the bones kind of thing was one, and then, you know, Freddy spinning around, then the father, then the house turning on. There was a lot. There was like, what should we do? Let's do it all. So yeah, it was a tough one, but I'm gonna give it to Friday the 13th. So that wraps it up. Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. It does not.
For the record, I just want to say I agree with you. Like the ending of Friday is better for me. Like Ring of Fire, iconic. But to me, the ending is like that last thing. So I'm sticking with my answer. But I just want the world to know I'm agreeing with you all on those notes.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I have no problem with you saying that, because there's been a lot, right? There's been a lot for me anyway, where even if it was like one-sided and I went more Friday, there was a lot that were really the slimmest of margins in these films. So okay, we're gonna do one other bonus question. We've never done this on any other show, obviously, for obvious reasons, and I hope that we all know them. But what's better, Alice Cooper's Man Behind the Mask or Dawkins' Dream Warriors?
That's a tough question.
Wait, do the ladies know? Do you guys know the songs?
I do.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we're gonna
Alice Cooper.
Sorry?
I'm going with Alice Cooper too.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Alice Cooper.
Holy
And
wow.
Feed My Frankenstein bonus. Amazing song.
Okay, so Man Behind the Mask for both of you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, John said it was a tough one, so I want to hear him break it down. It's tough for me too, John, so let's...
It's very, very tough for me. I'm going with Dream Warriors. I think I was a hair metal kid at this time, so this was all my wheelhouse. Dream Warriors to me is just an amazing song, better than any other song Dokken ever wrote, and I like Dokken a lot. They were my first concert, and they didn't play Dream Warriors, but that's a whole other conversation. But those are, I love Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper I'm a much bigger Alice Cooper fan in the great scheme of things, but I like Man Behind the Mask. I wish it was arranged differently. It's a little keyboardy for me. And I think Dream Warriors has a real mood to it where it kind of feels like a song in a horror movie, much more than Man Behind the Mask or Teenage Frankenstein really do.
Well, funny enough, I did a poll on that on Instagram, not in the summer, and it was my most voted on poll ever, and it ended up 50-50. And I was like, after all that, you give me a 50-50. So awesome. Okay, so that will be the tiebreaker question, should we need it. So we're back with the results for Friday 13th Part 6, Jason Lives versus Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. And the winner with a 17-15 vote is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. There it is. We even have visual on this. All right, so you guys went quiet. No cheering, no booing, no reaction at all.
I was doing tape drum roll. I can hear it shaking.
Okay, so you were busy. Catherine, are you happy with the result?
I'm kind of shocked that it was so close. Honestly, I felt like there was so much love for Nightmare on Elm Street that I'm like surprised that it was so close. But yeah. I feel like I voted for Friday the 13th a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, it's Nightmare started like a little bit stronger. Friday kind of picked up with the votes a little bit later on, so maybe like the first impression kind of made it seem like Elm Street. I thought Elm Street was kind of running away with it too for a while, but John, are you surprised? Probably not.
I thought Dream Warriors would run away with it because I think if you talk to most horror fans, you know, there are a lot of people who think Dream Warriors is better than the original Nightmare on Elm Street, which I don't agree with, but Dream Warriors seems to be an immensely popular sequel. But I think Jason, a lot of people like Jason Lives a lot too. But I still thought, I just thought if in a group of people I don't know, I would have assumed more people would have voted for Dream Warriors for kind of across the board.
Mia.
I don't know. I'm shocked I didn't vote for Friday more because I love it more as a movie, but it just like, I don't know, when you break down like, I guess the philosophy of the movies, Nightmare does, I guess, hold up a little bit differently, but I think Friday's a better movie.
So, okay, so I have a personal question for you because you voted for Elm Street 5 times and Friday 13th 3 times. And you said your boyfriend's favorite horror film is Jason Lives. Is this going to cause problems tonight?
Not his favorite horror film.
Oh, okay.
But his favorite Friday the 13th film, because this is sealed. He's never watched it on tape because it stayed sealed. And he quotes this movie. Anytime he quotes a horror film and I say, give me a hint, and he says it's a Friday the 13th movie, I immediately guess part 6 first because that's the movie he knows the best. He'll always say like, I'm going to repaint this office with your brains. I'm like, so no, I don't think it'll cause issues, but
All right.
he does love it.
All right. Well, he's got to know that you sided with Elm Street. You're an Elm Street girl on this one. But anyways, it was all good. It was really close, and that's what we always kind of hope for when we do these. It doesn't always happen. I'd like to thank all 3 of you for doing this and being a part of it and making the show like really, really fun. Thanks. I just said like. I just like really, really fun. John, thanks as always. Mia, thank you very much. Catherine, thank you for coming on the show. It was awesome to meet you.
I'm stoked.
That's it. It sounds like it. It sounds like it. All right. So that's it for this episode of Horror Face Off. We'll see you soon.